Today we're talking about Breakcore.
Man, shut your...
Now before I get into things, I want to say that this video was originally supposed to be talking about the more modern anime aesthetic Breakcore first, and then the more industrial side of Breakcore, like the older stuff. But then I remembered just how much the more modern side of Breakcore means to me, and there's a lot I want to say about it. So I'm just going to make the entire video about that, and then make a follow-up video at some point about the more harsh noise industrial side of Breakcore. So with that out of the way, let's jump in. Breakcore is a genre that many people of the chronically online variety probably know pretty well, and I know a lot of sweaty people wouldn't consider this real Breakcore, but I don't care. Let's just get that out of the way now. If you're gonna type a bunch of angry comments about how this isn't real Breakcore, just stop. Do not watch this video. So let me tell you my villain origin story. About a year and a half ago, I got this video recommended to me by the channel Brad Taste in Music, which I'm sure some of you know about. It was basically him just reacting to this really shitty Breakcore EP, but I had just never heard of this genre or anything like it. And that's not to say that what I heard was good. It was far from good, but I felt like it was new. And it's important to note at the time that I was listening to basically just cringy pop all the time. I never really taken a dive into any creative music. So even though this didn't sound good, it was still very new and interesting. So I took to the comments and asked if anyone had any good Breakcore recommendations. And to the Brad fanbase's credit, they actually did pull through and gave me quite a lot of stuff to listen to. The first suggestion I got was somebody telling me to listen to the album Tomboyish Love for a Soda Pop and Apple Sweets by Goreit. So I put my headphones on with a smile on my face and pressed play, and needless to say, I was blown away, so I listened to another song, and then another, and then the whole album eventually, and then another album, and then another album. Now, like I said, I was basically just listening to shitty pop at the time, so the fact that I could jump from that right into Breakcore of all things is pretty surprising. When I tell you that this is all I listened to for a few weeks, I mean it. Just casually walking down the college campus with Goreit blasting in my ears, it's really something. But thanks to Spotify's recommendations, I actually found out pretty fast that there's a big range of emotions when it comes to Breakcore. It doesn't have to be just insane fucking blasting your eardrums off constantly. And not to say that that's bad, it can be fun if you're in the right mood, but I was really surprised by how emotional some of this shit can get, so I just wanted to talk about, I guess, the many faces of Breakcore in this video and why I love them. So since I'm already on the topic, I'm going to start with Goreit. So I don't know if this is common knowledge, I didn't know it until I started researching for this video, but Goreit was actually a duo consisting of Leon Makepeace and Shred Wilson when they formed in 2005. They made one EP in 2007, and then Shred left for unknown reasons, and after that Leon began making all the music by himself, which is what he's been doing ever since. I was honestly surprised by how good this EP was. Like, I wouldn't expect this to be the first body of work from Goreit. It just sounds like right off the bat they knew exactly what style they wanted. The one exception here is the song Fuck Dog, which is basically a metal song, which was sort of surprising, but I really liked it. Now, Leon has made over 20 albums since this came out, so I'm only going to talk about a couple things from him because we would literally be here all day. So let's talk about the aforementioned Tomboyish Love for a Soda Pop and Apple Sweets. It really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? So like I said, this is the first Breakcore album I ever listened to, and if you know anything about Breakcore, you know that that's sort of a risky thing to do. I feel like most people that jump right into that would probably hate it and want to start with something a little slower, but not me. This is still one of the most abrasive albums I've ever heard. There's just never a point where this shit slows down, so you better find something to hold on to when you listen to it, because it's an hour and 10 minutes of pure chaos. And normally, I might take some points off for an hour and 10 minutes of that, but it is a compilation album, so pacing doesn't even really matter at that point. And if this seems like too much music to sift through, then allow me to play some of my favorite songs. there's an obvious controversy with this type of shit that I want to cover now. That being lollycore, which is basically when artists sample the voices of kids from anime shows. Now, I don't think that Goreit does it maliciously, but it is a little bit weird, and I do think that it attracts really degenerate people a lot of the time. I think the intention is to add a sense of irony to it, like this cute aesthetic combined with this hellish bass-boosted music, and I think in this case it does work. Like, it does add a sense of humor to the songs, but again, it can attract some weird people, and sometimes it leaves a bad taste in my mouth if it's done the wrong way. The other music I want to talk about with Goreit actually has none of that, and that would be the copyright infringement EP. Now, all things considered, this would probably be more suited for the previously mentioned video I want to make on industrial breakcore, but it's short and we're already here, so yeah. Now, the first 3 out of 4 of these tracks do kind of blend together. That's not to say they're bad though, but they are very intense. It sort of feels like being stuck in a laundry machine with a brick flying around your head. But the most popular song by far here is the last one, Black is the New Black. Now, obviously, the reason it's popular is because the intensity is lowered quite a bit, but I like that. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel after you've gone through these hellish 3 songs. So even if you turn this EP on and you think, wow, this sounds like shit, just skip to the last song. You'll probably find something out of it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is not a specific artist, but actually sort of a subgenre of breakcore that's been popping up within the last 5 years, I want to say. And that's this old school video game aesthetic that a lot of breakcore artists are adapting now, mainly like Dreamcast era, Nintendo 64 era, anything early 3D. And this is mainly due to that big nostalgia frenzy that happened a couple years ago where everyone suddenly loved weirdcore and dreamcore and liminal spaces and all this fucking shit. And that's basically because everybody my age realized, hey, I'm getting kind of old, I'm not really a kid anymore, and started getting sad about it. And as somebody who went through a nostalgia craze back in 2020 or 2021, this music does hit home pretty hard. And I actually think that this music works even better now because of this new second wave of nostalgia, which is Frutiger era. And if you don't know what that word means, it's basically the marketing tactic that was used back in the 2000s and early 2010s, where everything was all 3D and bubbly and there was fish everywhere and nature everywhere, but also it was combined with technology. And of course, a big part of this Frutiger era resurgence is video games that we grew up with. Good examples are stuff like the Wii Sports games or the Sonic Adventure games or Super Monkey Ball, and my personal favorite, Kirby 64, which is one that I don't see a lot of people talk about, but I do think that it fits into that weird, surreal 3D aesthetic. Now, how does this relate to breakcore? Well, it's basically the fact that all of the music for these games perfectly matches all of the visuals. So take that early 3D music and combine it with a fast drum and bass, and suddenly you have a new subgenre of breakcore. I think a great place to start with this subgenre of breakcore is the album Tilt by Nana Ray. Nana Ray is one of the larger artists in this subgenre, and it's really easy to see why. Tilt is 30 minutes of fusing video game-inspired music with breakcore to perfection. They've made a few albums by now, and all of them have this nostalgic element. And within the last few years, other artists have popped up with their own take on this aesthetic. Notable projects include Ghostworm and Teeth Restoration by Baitu.
Baitu.
Pretty much everything by DJ Camgirl. Chow Garden by Golden Boy. And of course, Kaizo Slumber. Kaizo Slumber is probably my favorite artist in this subgenre. Everything about them, from their music to their album covers to even their mascot, just bleeds through to Goreit, and I love it. Their early stuff was very peaceful and relaxing, but recently they've taken on a much more intense sound with their last two albums. And I really like this, as it feels like there's a lot more variety within his discography now, and it really shows how far his musical talent reaches. He also has a now defunct side project, which I can't pronounce the name of, but if you like Kaizo Slumber, it's definitely worth checking out. Just keep in mind that 90% of it got removed from Spotify, so you'll have to look for the albums on your own. This subgenre is probably my favorite aspect of breakcore. Not only is it fun and nostalgic, but it makes the artists feel really relatable. Finding an artist that finds the same things nostalgic that you do is really cool, and I think that nostalgia is a really powerful tool for bringing people together. It also helps build a very welcoming and artistic community, which is always good to see. Now I could talk about the upbeat and video gamey sounding breakcore albums all day, but to do that would be to neglect one of the biggest juggernauts in this genre, someone who in many people's eyes is the face of breakcore as a whole. Sewer Slut and her music means so much to me that it's hard for me to put it into words. That is in part because it would require me to delve into my personal life, but also because she was the first artist I obsessed over. You name it, I've heard it, even the B-sides and the unused tracks. I do plan to make a video just about Sewer Slut in the future, but for now all you need to know is that she was a very unhealthy person. She's probably the most chronically online artist I've ever seen, and this explains why she's been in the spotlight of controversy so much over the last few years. But whether you love her or hate her, you can't deny that her music has been much more far-reaching than anyone else in the genre, and as of recently, she's been the only artist in breakcore to be this close to the mainstream. And her influence for breakcore within the last few years cannot be denied. But why is this? Well, it all has to do with the melancholy emotions that appear throughout all of her music. To give you an idea of what I mean, her influences could be anything from Machine Girl to the untimely death of her loved ones. And as you can imagine, this often resulted in very emotional albums. Sewer Slut became a big name back in 2019 thanks to the YouTube algorithm promoting her song Mr. Kill Myself. And while she herself doesn't like the song for a multitude of reasons, it is pretty damn good. A lot of breakcore songs across all subgenres tend to stay in one place. By that I mean, once you hear the first 10 seconds, you pretty much know what you're in for the rest of the song. Compare that to Mr. Kill Myself, which is nearly 8 minutes, or Junko Loves You, which is almost 7. Or Lollybox, which is 8.5 minutes. And these are just a few examples. I would say on average, most of her songs are around 5 minutes long. But if that's still too short, why not listen to the 15-minute song Nothingness? Or the 22-minute song Tortured Lesbians Ripped Apart. My point is, these songs are less about making a cool dance beat and instead take their time, taking you on a ride through a vast array of emotions in the process. And don't misinterpret that as me saying all of the previous artists I mentioned don't have any emotion in their songs, because they do. But now we're dealing with a lot more fucked up and sad emotions, and I think that this slower approach really accommodates that. This is music made by someone who's been in a lot of pain for many different reasons over the course of their career. And hearing her ability to translate her brutal emotions into sound is genuinely beautiful. And for me and many others, it's like being able to hear my own thoughts sometimes, and that's extremely comforting. To really see and understand my own negative emotions is one of the most powerful things I've ever experienced, and it wouldn't have been possible without Sewer Slut's music. The most powerful piece of art that Sewer Slut's made, and one of the most powerful albums I've ever heard, is her last album, We Had Good Times Together. Don't forget that. I mentioned earlier that Sewer Slut has lost some loved ones in her life and uses it to make music, and that is this album. This album was made in honor of her girlfriend who committed suicide back in 2021. At this point in her career, Sewer Slut was ready to quit, and she said multiple times that this album was the hardest thing she ever had to make. And the emotions are powerful here, not just through the songs themselves, but through the visuals accompanying them on her YouTube channel. Every song here is perfect, but the last one is the best by far. Given that this was Sewer Slut's last project she ever made, it was expected that the last song would be much longer and more grand than anything else, and it exceeds expectations. It's every bit of emotion, every bit of trauma just thrown at you, slapped in your face for 17 minutes. The two biggest standout moments aren't actually related to the music at all, but to the visuals in the music video. The first is something I'm a little bit unclear on, which are these text messages, which are presumably from Sewer Slut and her girlfriend. I don't know exactly what the significance is because obviously it's very blurry, but given the themes of this album, I would have to guess that it's the last conversation that these two ever had. And while this is of course very sad, it doesn't hold a candle to what happens at the end of the song, which is this.
Like 4 times a year, I rediscover Bjork and listen to her whole discography. And if you could see me right now, like banging my fucking head around, screaming along to her lyrics, you would be like, someone sanction this girl to the psych ward. I am enjoying myself. I love Bjork.
Truly a heartbreaking ending to what is one of the best breakcore artists in recent memory. I think the key word here is emotion. I think that's the point I've been trying to find throughout this video. Breakcore, at least modern breakcore, to people that don't listen to it, probably doesn't sound that interesting. On the surface, it just seems like music that you turn on and then don't pay attention to while you do something else. And it can be, but if you dig a little bit deeper, you'll find layers and layers of emotions. Yes, even people like Goreit have plenty of emotional purpose in their music. Are you feeling nostalgic for shit you used to like? Well, there's plenty of artists to experience that. Do you want to forget about everything and just experience pure adrenaline? Well, there's plenty of artists for that. Or maybe you need to take it slow and remember everything. And that's okay, because there's plenty of artists for that too. So set aside some time, put your headphones on with a smile on your face, and get ready to dive into the many layers of breakcore.